You need acid.
The acid's kicking in. Thank you, Terry. Yeah, it's great. It's great being here. Love this place. Got late here once. Okay, never mind. This is a poem I wrote in the...
Sure. You're a little bit on the tall side.
This is a poem I wrote in the elevator going up and down the elevator in the Hyatt Embarcadero, the one in high anxiety.
Sound check.
Huh?
Sound check.
Sound check, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting closer. All right, it's called Levels, and it has some beat references. The kid in the back seat starts talking about levels. Levels of logic, levels of feeling, levels of libido. It's a spatial conundrum. You travel through levels like passing through the locks on the Erie Canal. He says love has levels. It begins in the woods, but the trick happens in the clearing when the sun fools you. The moon he calls an old man, dragging himself up the stairs. Sometimes he makes it to the top. Mostly he stumbles, then sleeps it off. Torture has levels of pain, and so does heaven, with its angels and seraphim, its rich and its poor. For him, hell is an elevator. The quality of your room depends on the floor you're traveling to. Pachinko balls will earn you tokens, which will earn you cash, which will earn you whiskey, which will leave you dry. If you're talking to me, am I the tree with all its leaves, or the barren birdless thing that hides its face in the autumn? Neil offers the kid a smoke. Jack says, don't get too close. In Sacramento, they kick the kid out of the car and start to climb the hill, the speedometer steady for the time being. Okay, all right, big deal. Here we go. I wrote this for my mother. She's left me though, but it's for her. She was great. Mother's Day poem. Every spring our mother would open the nothing box, and out would come clean linen, biceps, and breasts. Cherries, the promise of easy love, and slivers of moonlight soft to the touch. The box was a gift from the preacher man, the one who wore the blue tie, the one who roamed the hills muttering expletives like some fallen Caesar, the same one who told us never to read the Bible, said there were too many mistakes in it. Said Jesus never really died, not even for 3 days, and Moses spent his final years peeling figs in the promised land. We loved the preacher man. We loved our mother. But when the flood came sweeping over the grasslands, we tossed that nothing box as far as we could, and then knew at last our days were numbered. Okay, here's one I wrote while I was drinking a lot of beer and hallucinating Terry Adams. And he's heard it, but it's called Jimmy Meets Alan and I Profit, like iTunes. Okay, here we go. Who cares? I'm sitting in the Blind Tiger. The sun presses his face against my neck. I can feel his breath, dry heat. Strange, I was expecting humidity. His teeth snap like an Elvin Jones hi-hat, and my throat takes a quick step back. A growl starts in a far-off room, builds from bass to falsetto, almost comic like Don Juan turning castrato, and dangerous, though, like the flame in my heart. I'm waiting for Jimmy the rat killer. He's late. He's a night rider, ridding the streets of vermin, Harvard MBAs, lawyers lashing modern-day Paulines to the track, selling short, buying tall, stretching loopholes so the rich can slide through. Jimmy's mama taught him how to tighten the garret, to feel the moment the artery bulges like a bullish day on NASDAQ, just a tick before the goodbye breath. She warned him about pulling down his britches, putting himself in a position to get sucker punched from behind, demoted, permanently assigned to leaf blower patrol. How you gonna pay the rent now, Mr. Jimmy? I remember when Jimmy met Ginsberg, the poet who got his big idea the night Lon Chaney dressed like the moon and the dogs in the East Village wouldn't shut up. Tompkins Square, 1967, Bonnie and Clyde. Back when home was a cross-country car and family was anyone who bought the Ripple. There was so much hope in that decade. Jimmy was Walt Frazier, gliding, doing figure eights between his legs. Ginsberg was clacking finger cymbals, his saffron robe fluttering in the wind like Wall Street after 9/11. And just like that, Jimmy jumped into the Buddhist conga line. put his hands on Ginsburg's hips, said, "Namaste, my darling." You can bet neither one was thinking best minds of his or any generation. That was the secret Ginsburg whispered. No thinking. And Jimmy listened. Now he was teaching it to me.
Oh, you're fine. All right,
People seem to like this poem. I don't know why, because it's a poem about the three most evil people in the 20th century. Stalin, Hitler, and my cousin Mac. Okay, so for some reason I'm really bad. Okay, so I don't even remember the title of it. Anyway, here we go. High on poetry, Stalin used to prance around the Kremlin like a cat. He'd bare his claws, purr, ready, set, go. And the halls would fill with 1,000 mice, all clamoring and shoving each other, scattering this way and that, a mob of tiny Parsifals, each determined to be the one who finds the grail. When Stalin dreamed, which was not often, Trotsky always figured as a slice of hard cheddar, Lenin an unruly mess of Roquefort, Siberia nothing but curds and whey. The only way Hitler could get it up was as if Ava pretended to be a corpse, her blondness crawling with worms, her heart the grim conclusion of a fairy tale. He liked to play doctor, check her pulse, run his hand up and down her spine, ask her to lie still and think of England. What fun they had in the bunker, their German shepherd, their chess games, their matching Lugers loaded for the kill. And then there's my cousin Mac, now bald and dying of Parkinson's, but once a bully, the family sadist who tied my sister with blue ribbons to a chair and left her in a closet. Her only companion, a hungry copperhead and a black and white Philco TV set. My mother never did find her, though she searched for years.
Wow.
Okay, here's the
Dark.
No, you're actually halfway there, brother.
Well, I'm just going to do this one. This is actually a weird thing. This is just a draft. Last night, my daughter, who just moved back from New York, and I just sat around and got totally drunk, and we kind of wrote this together. So,
Love you, Bob.
My daughter, Camille, with the help of Ginsburg. It's called a supermarket in Millennialville. It's called a supermarket in Millennialville. Can you hear me? Okay, here we go. I parked my self-driving car, or rather, he parked to me. I pulled out my list. Zombies? Check. Vampires? Check. Yups? Check. Googleites? Everywhere. Check, check, check. The first thing I did inside the market was look for Garcia Lorca among the watermelons. Alan, he still isn't there. I thought I spied him by the almond milk. But it wasn't Lorca, it was Opie from the Andy Griffith Show, explaining to Stephen Fetchit that growing up with red hair and freckles helped him understand racism. Opie strummed his ukulele, a gift from Aunt Bee, and sang a verse of Mammy and left the store feeling he had made America great again. Mr. Fetchit laughed and started mopping the floor. He was good at it. He'd had lots of experience. I wanted poetry, but I saw cheese instead. Drunken Goat Boy, Ride 'em Cowgirl, Don't Be So Blue, Stilton. I wanted justice too, but the beer turned my head. Monk brewed IPA labeled Smash the State, $10 a bottle. Another advertised itself as the equivalent of a hot threesome in Salt Lake City. I took a sip, decided to move to Colorado. Not a single gray beard anywhere, not a prophet in sight, instead just bushy young man beards, John Deere tractor caps, man buns dancing in the crazy light. Down by the garden center, Sly Stone's family was leading a riot. The Persian cucumbers, you know how excited they get when they hear a horn, were high-stepping it with an overabundance of kale, the new arugula. Heads of cabbage were rolling on the floor, and the carrots were humping them and making coleslaw. The raisins jumped in, and the party went all Love Shack. Everyone everywhere was counting cash. Green is such a rich, beautiful color. I walked down the aisles past the gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, meat-free, grain-free, corn-free, cage-free, and then I found it. The food-free food aisle. The nutrition of the future, guaranteed to keep you alive and smelling fresh for centuries. That mythic riverman, Charon, poled his ferry right up to me, right up to where I was standing. He looked beat in both senses of the word. He asked me, who stole the pork chop? I told him, Whitman. I heard he hid it in the bananas. Let's see, I'm just improvising. Okay. Charon took me to the register on his boat, and there was Big Walt. He was covered in ink, black, blue, all colors, just what you think. He was buying frozen pet food, Alaskan salmon, Antarctic fowl. I was buying a Trayvon Martin hoodie. It seemed like the progressive thing to do. Whitman turned toward me and gave me that look. You know, the one that includes everyone and everything. And then he asked me, surprise, surprise, to help him feed the poor, their bodies and their minds. What can I say? The man is a god. I said, yes, of course. The two of us walked outside past the sexually ambiguous bathers and their visions of God in the laundry, past Mr. Lincoln, still wearing his captain's bars, past that pesky spider who waits and doesn't make a sound, past Jack and Burroughs and Corso. Our boots were leaving tracks that people could follow if they wanted. They could hear the barbaric yelp. They could hear the howl. Clearly, Whitman never left us, and neither did Ginsberg. It's time to open the book and begin the dream.
Yeah!